I never had time to have my own personality per se. I think I just took that personality of like, all right, just be the best.
Yeah, because it's like we were told this is the model student. These are the characteristics of a model student. So everyone is just trying to be that person instead of being themselves. Yeah,
exactly. So the very first time I had a break in my life was when I went to study abroad in Scotland. That was the very first time in my life where I suddenly realized, wow, having a break is good. It actually feels good.
Yeah.
And what that means for me is I am allowing myself to accept the fact that, hey, I don't have to be exactly the same as another person who's the same age as me.
Yeah. I think people always say, don't compare yourself. Comparison is a thief of joy. It is true.
It is true.
It is very true. But it's also easier said than done.
Yeah.
Especially when we are constantly bombarded by all these different things. And so I'm wondering, how have you been able to drown out that noise and just focus on what works for you? It's not easy, to be fair. It's really not.
It's not easy. I think it's just accepting the choice you make.
Yeah.
That is what I'm gonna say.
Gotta live with it. It's like sometimes as people we feel like failures, not because we're actually failing, but because maybe we don't fit into that specific narrow structure that has been given for us. I think when you were speaking, I was just really inspired by what you're saying about how accepting who you are fully, accepting your circumstances, being like, this is how my life is right now, this is what I have in front of me, these are the choices I have made, how do I make this work for myself?
Exactly.
That's liberating.
Yeah.
Hi friends, welcome to another episode of A This and That. My name is A This, that's one of my names. I am so excited for yet another episode, and today I have a very special guest here with me. This is my friend. I'll let her introduce herself.
My name is Lyncy, and I'm a very good friend of Frida from college.
So we've known each other for maybe 7 years now, right?
Yeah.
But thank you, Lyncy, for being here. It's very exciting to have you here. So guys, as you know, the last episode was about the concept of time, and especially looking at time from an African lens. And so I have Lyncy here because if anybody keeps time and is so like on time and every second accounted for, it is my girl here.
I think she's exaggerating. Every second accounted for.
I feel like anytime
I can't remember.
I feel like anytime I ask you, oh, what are you doing Sunday? You'll be like, oh, from 8 to 9, I'm going to the gym. From 9 to 5, I'm doing this. Maybe it's not that you have every second accounted for, but you have a very structured approach to things in general, which is great, right? So, Lyncy, let's start with this. Tell me what time means to you. How do you view time?
I view time as a way to help me accomplish things I want to accomplish, whether that's spending time with my friends, spending time with my family, hitting my fitness goals, going to the gym, working. I think the way I think about time, the way I think about how I spend my time, and even the goals that I want to accomplish has changed over time. Back in the day, I had goals, and
Back in which day? A young girl over here talking about back in the day.
Back in the days in college, back in the days when I was not enlightened. When I got to a certain age, I had this light bulb moment, and I saw time differently. So I think back in the day, I thought about, okay, set goals and work towards accomplishing these goals. But these days, first of all, I think about how much time do I actually have during the day? What can I reasonably accomplish? Which means I'm not like limiting the goals I have in life. It just means I'm not setting 5, 10, 20 goals. I'm just telling myself, all right, today I just want to make sure I go to the gym, or I'm going to this happy hour. My goal is to just connect with one person, and if I connect with one person, then even if I've been here for 2 hours, 3 hours, that's enough. A good friend of mine, she was telling me the way she thinks about how weekends are. She thinks about, all right, what's one productive thing I want to accomplish? What's one health and fitness thing I want to accomplish? And then what's one way for me to feed myself spiritually? And then what's another way for me to just blob and not do anything meaningful, at least according to the world outside. So she thinks about her weekends in 4 dimensions and make sure that she has time to just be, and also has time to connect and has time to prepare for the week ahead. And I thought that was really interesting. I haven't fully integrated that into my weekends, but I thought it was really interesting way of thinking about your time during the weekend and how to make it work for you.
So it sounds like you're saying you've generally learned how to become like a more chill person and not always on the go. So I have a question, like, would you say you're a type A or a type B person?
Tough question. I think it just depends on the situation, on what it is. I think if it's like professional, then I want to do a good enough job, not a perfect job. And even my life, I want my life to feel good enough, not to feel perfect. Even the way I, quote unquote, I'm using time as a resource, I just want to feel like, all right, this was good enough. I'm not aiming for perfect. So I think type A feels like closer to the perfection end, and I think I maybe a blend of in between A to B, transitioning in between depending on what situation we're at.
Which is very fair. So you said like before you were always like that, oh my gosh, I have these 20 things, but in 20 days I have to achieve it and all. What changed that's how your perspective changed, so that now you're viewing it more like, okay, we don't need to do everything? What really changed between like college and now?
If you grew up in the same way I grew up, which was first there was primary school and then we went to high school, your goal was to get the highest grade possible in high school so you can get into a really good school. And so high school was all about, all right, I'll study, do a good job. It was a boarding school. I never had time to have my own personality per se. I think I just took that personality of like, all right, just be the best.
Because it's like we were told, this is the model student. These are the characteristics of a model student. So everyone is just trying to be that person.
Exactly.
Instead of being themselves.
Exactly. So in high school, I literally didn't even have space to be myself. And then college, I think I came here knowing I have crossed a continent. I am not here to fail.
And fair enough.
My first 3 years of college were very much like, all right, how can we make sure we get an internship? How can we make sure that we have a full-time job when we're graduating?
Very intense,
It was very intense. And the very first time I had a break in my life was when I went to study abroad in Scotland. I wasn't working. I was just taking 3 classes, first of all.
Wow.
So I was taking 1 class less than I usually do. So I was just taking 3 classes. And then I felt like I had so much time. And so that was the very first time in my life where I had a night routine. Like I had like 1 hour before sleep, shower, read a book before bed. And I just really liked how slow the pace was. That was the first time I started to have a fitness routine. I had a very good friend, Rati, who used to go to the gym after dinner, and then I'd come back to my night routine and then sleep. I really liked how slow the life was. And that was the very first time in my life where I suddenly realized, wow, having a break is good. It actually feels good. And so coming back, even during my senior year, there was an option for me to like maybe sign up, take a graduate school class so that I can have an honors, graduate with an honors. But you know what I told myself? It's not going to make a difference if I have an honors or if I don't have an honors.
Right.
I told myself, no, I'm not going to take that graduate school course. I'll just take my regular math classes, my regular econ classes. And I even took like a geology class, which I loved and enjoyed.
Those are some of my favorite classes.
And then I also took an African, I don't remember the exact name of the class, but we were reading literature by African authors, and I really enjoyed it. So I will say that I realized, sometimes I don't have to try and be the best. I can just do what is good enough. Because at that point in time, I realized I've already worked so hard the last 3 years. I can relax-ish and I can just work on my pieces, and then I can hang out with my friends on weekends and not have to do assignments every single weekend. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Speaking of African, so I'm sure you know this because we're both Africans, we're both from Kenya, obviously,
it's very feasible.
Yes. But obviously you know about the concept of African time. To be fair, today we were supposed to meet at a certain time. And I was like, oh, there's probably an allowance. But I told her no African timing.
But she told me that.
I did tell her that. And then she arrived on the dot, like not even 01, like on the dot of the hour. And then she's like, oh, I'm outside. And I'm like, am I hypocrite?
That was funny.
Because I was like, at the end of the day, we're all Africans, please.
Yeah, we're all Africans. So.
What's your perspective on African time?
I think I view African time in two ways. So there was African time from the time of our ancestors and African time today. So this concept of African time today, sometimes I appreciate it and sometimes I'm not the most excited about it. If it's a one-on-one hangout and I know that, you know, I'm hanging out with you and then 5 hours later I need to hang out with this other person. If the first person I'm hanging out with shows up like 2 hours later, then we can only hang out for 30 minutes before the next person. And I would have really loved to spend that 2 hours with you, not 30 minutes. So I don't appreciate that so much. So, but when it's group settings, you know, people will come in and trickle in 1 hour, 2 hours later. Just depends on how long the hangout is. Sometimes I appreciate that because it's a Friday evening. We're supposed to hang out and I just don't feel like leaving my house and my apartment, or I realize that I need to finish up a few things before I leave. It's okay for me to get there an hour later. It's okay for me to get there 2 hours later. I appreciate that. So sometimes it also means that I just won't show up. And I feel like that's okay because I don't feel like I have the capacity to go and hang out with them, then I'm not gonna go all together. I think back in the day I used to show up exactly on time and then I guess maybe a year and a half ago I decided I don't need to show up on time, especially if it's not inconveniencing anyone. Then I just stopped showing up on time. I like what you said. African time these days, honestly, be for real, it's just another way of saying late, like people who are late and all. And I feel like there's a way to do that, as you said, in a low stakes situation. Like, it's a social setting, it's a party, like no one needs to show up on time necessarily, unless it's also one of those things like the person hosting has kids and the kids need to be in bed by 9 p.m. Like, you know, like it really depends on the situation. To zoom it out a bit, with that in mind, I feel like in our current society, we're so governed by time, and even beyond, like, you know, like it's 5 p.m, we need to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's like even the period of our lives, like you're 25. You know, as a 25-year-old, this should be the thing that you're as a 30-year-old, you should be a millionaire. Like a millionaire, actually, now. Because now people are millionaires at 21.
Like, I want to, like, get your perspective on now that, like, given that you've been kind of dialing it back a bit, how do you combine that, like your current state, with like this idea where we live in this society that's always demanding, it's urgent, everything is urgent, be a millionaire now, people are making money and you're sleeping, you know, like how do you combine those things? So how have you combined it in your mind?
First of all, what I've told myself is I need to have my own definition of what I think is success in my life. In other words, what is success in my life first? So I do feel that pressure of, all right, by X time you should have had this, by Y time you should have had this, but I also recognize where I am today and the experiences that have brought me to where I am today. Meaning, at my age, an American student who's grown up in America will have experienced life differently because their life was different. And what that means for me is I am allowing myself to accept the fact that, hey, I don't have to be exactly the same as another person who's the same age as me. For example, if I'm thinking about the fact that maybe I want to have a family, as a woman, I think people say that there's a biological clock, and we obviously know with modern advances of technology, you don't need to adhere to the clock, but having that kind of makes me think and start to work backwards in terms of, all right, if I actually want a family, do I want to see my great-grandchildren, or do I just want to see my children? If I want to see my great-grandchildren, it is fair to say
you're
that
late at this point.
I'm a kind.
We should say level.
Yeah, right? If I want to see my grandchildren, do I really want to have my first kid at 40, right? I think there's the bigger picture of there are some things in my life where I do have to accept how the cosmic and nature defines them and be mindful of that. But it doesn't mean that now my life is governed by what nature is saying. It just means I'm mindful of it and I'm trying to see, all right, how can I accommodate that
and make it work
for me, but not have like a set timeline of, all right, by 30 I need to have done this, have done this, have done that. I think I am accepting that I will be willing to take my life a little slower in some aspects of my life. There are other aspects of my life where I want to take my life a little faster and be more efficient. So if we're talking about like, if I wanted to start a business and solve a certain solution, then I want to do that faster in terms of, all right, can I try to see if this is a solution that consumers are interested in? Is this a solution that's going to work for them? Because I don't want to work on something for 5 years and then have it fail 5 years when I could have done the work in a year and a half, and then figured out, this is probably not an interesting solution, let's move on to the next thing. But when it comes to like my social life, my family life, I just want to take it step by step and spend time with them, but like not rush to like spend time with everyone at the same time, because that's like not possible. So I am accepting a slower pace in certain aspects of my life, and then maybe expecting a faster pace in other aspects of my life, and then I'm gonna change how fast different aspects of my life depending on what I'm prioritizing at the time.
I really like that answer, because I think even the way you started by saying you're defining for yourself what success means, but I think it sounds like, if I'm to project my interpretation onto what you're saying, it's like you also say you can define for yourself what the timelines of your life could be or should be. And so it is fair, as you said, like nature does have a part to play. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say an anti-scientific thing, which is like it doesn't matter what age you have kids. It kind of does. There are exceptions, to be fair. There's always exceptions to the rule, but for most women, I think it does matter. But I think even as you're saying, it's like, cool, but maybe I am not ready for that step right now. How could I make it work for myself? And as you said, there's so many scientific advancements these days. Like, people freeze their eggs. There's all these different things. But then also, as you're saying, it's like knowing this, if I make this decision, this is the implication. Like, if I have a kid at 40, I'm going to be an older parent. Like, my kid is going to be in college when I'm like, I don't know, 60, 70. Yeah. I think people always say, don't compare yourself. Comparison is a thief of joy. It is true.
It is true.
It is very true. But it's also easier said than done.
Yeah.
Especially when we are constantly bombarded by all these different things. And so I'm wondering, how have you been able to like drown out the external noise? Because I know you're also in a transitionary period, but I also know we don't always make decisions that are quote unquote the same as those around us. So in your case, because it sounds like you're saying, like, I don't look at outside, blah, blah. How have you been able to drown out that noise and just focus on what works for you? It's not easy, to be fair. It's really not.
It's not easy. It's not easy. There are times I actually like having friends around me, like you guys, because I can see that you're doing things and I am motivated seeing you guys do things. When I see ladies just living life, decorating your living rooms, it's inspiring. It's not like, oh, I want my living room to look exactly like your living room because it's beautiful. I want mine to also feel the same way. I want my living room to feel good. I want to be happy going there. So I'm accepting, I don't have to have the same exact things as somebody else, but I'm inspired by what the people around me are doing. Looking at my life, am I happy with the things I've done so far? If I'm not happy with the things I've done so far, then what can I change to make my life more aligned towards what I want? And it's not easy, because the thing is, yes, I see my friends around me being successful and that inspires me, but at the same time I also accept where I am in life. I'm learning to accept, all right, this is where I am in life, and these are my circumstances in life. So the big part has come with acceptance. For example, me accepting the fact that I always knew I wanted to go to grad school, and I needed to pick a time to go to grad school. So I decided that I was going to go to grad school this year. And then I realized, my semester, I have a semester that starts early. It's exciting. It means I stop work earlier and I just become a student, which is a completely different life.
Yeah.
Right? It's a completely different life. I am more so accepting where I am in life as opposed to trying to have my life be the exact same thing. It's like accepting the choice I make, and also accepting the fact that I feel like I try to be mindful of my life, and so I don't feel bad about where I am today.
And you shouldn't.
Exactly. What I tell myself is the reason why I'm not feeling pressure right now is because I'm accepting my circumstances as of today are good. I've made good choices in life. I think if I was not making good choices in my life, and if I was just letting life pass me without thinking about my life, then I would be in a position where I feel like I want to catch up. I'm trying to run and catch up with what's happening around me. But I feel okay because I don't feel like I was sleeping when others were out and about, waking up and grinding life.
Yeah.
I was also making choices at the time. I think it's my past that is making me comfortable with what I am today, and the choices I made in the past that are making me comfortable with where I am today.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, because the choices I'm making now will determine what when my life looks like in December, and it's gonna be okay. If it's an outcome that's different from what I expected, I'm also just gonna accept it and say, you know what, this is where I'm meant to be at this time, and it's okay.
Wow, I feel like you've said so many gems, like so many beautiful things in that statement. One thing that's kind of jumping out at me, so it's like you're saying accepting the circumstances you're in right now. So you see how you and I both were in the Kenyan system. We were expected to be a specific way, right? To be a model student, to be a good student. This is what it looks like. Step A, then step B, then and no deviations. You have to be in line. If you have even one flaw, then it's like no, whatever.
Yeah.
Growing in that mindset, and then moving here to the West. I feel like people say the West has freedom and all that stuff, but I still feel like, especially from a professional setting, there's a very limited way you can be as a professional.
100%.
In corporate, in the workplace, there's a very narrow window of what you can fit in. So there's still a lot of conformity, and there's still a lot of you have to play the game a certain way to fit into the structure, right?
Yeah.
And so deviating from that is hard.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard.
So hard.
But I like what you're saying about accepting where you are.
Yeah.
Because I think for most people, sometimes as people, we feel like failures, not because we're actually failing, but because maybe we don't fit into that specific narrow structure that has been given for us.
Yeah.
Like even if I think back to my high school, and the way the teachers would talk about some students and be like, you're a failure, you'll never amount to nothing. And if I look at it, it's not like those kids were actually failures. They just didn't fit into that box. It is a box, right? Into that box. And so I like I think when you were speaking, I was just really inspired by what you're saying about how accepting who you are fully, accepting your circumstances fully, and even if you don't fit into that box, being like, this is how my life is right now, this is what I have in front of me, these are the choices I have made, how do I make this work for myself?
Exactly.
That's liberating.
Yeah. Even the concept of time for 9 to 5 workers, or some like 9 to 9,
like
some are 9 to 9.
Anyone 9 to 5.
You like, your time is not your own.
Oh girl.
When you're doing a 9 to 5 job, your time is not your own. Your time is your employer. You're compensated for the time that you're giving up. You also learn different skill sets. So we are not undermining the skill set.
I mean, I feel like it's a good opportunity.
It's a great opportunity.
For sure.
It's a great opportunity. But in the context of time and freedom of time, you really don't have your time to yourself.
Which is tough.
Which is tough because, right, what do I want for my life? What kind of freedom do I want with my time? What kind of freedom do you want with your time? And how do we get there?
Can we answer that question? Because that's one of my questions for you. What does time freedom mean to you? Or what would it mean to you in an ideal world?
In an ideal world, I think freedom of time would mean that I have control over my time in a reasonable way, right? I'm not saying I want to have control over my time every single day of my life, every single moment of my life, right? I want to have reasonable control over my time.
Why not every single day?
I would love every single day. That's the goal, having freedom over my life every single day. The reason why I don't say every single day is because whether I'm working for myself or I'm working for an employer, I have somebody that I'm reporting to. I have goals that I'm trying to accomplish. So let's say from 11 to 4 p.m., I need to make sure I put this presentation together, or I need to make sure my employees are paid if I'm working for myself. So that time, yes, I have control over when I can do these things, which is actually really great because I have control over what actions I can do during the day. But it doesn't mean I'm doing nothing. It just means I'm choosing. I have the ability to choose what I'm going to do. But it also means that these things have to get done. So I have to pick a time and choose a time when I'm going to do these things. What I would want is the ability to be able to pick and choose the time when I can do these things, so that if I want to have a doctor's appointment, it's not like, oh, I really have to explain myself about having a doctor's appointment. Consider myself a responsible person.
You are.
So
she is.
So I want to be trusted with my time. I want to be trusted that I am accomplishing the things I want to accomplish without having somebody on my neck, on my back saying, all right, how productive were you from 9 to 10? How, it's more like, all right, I need this back, or this needs to get done. And it's my responsibility to make sure that I assign time when to accomplish that thing. So I want to be able to have that freedom to control when I can do my things, but not to not have anything to do.
I love what you said, because I guess you kind of pushed back a bit, because I was like, why not have control of your time anytime, all day long? But then I love the pushback, because it's like, I'm realizing now, like, at the end of the day, we live in a society that is interdependent, and we owe each other something. So whether it's you owe your employees like accountability and being able to make sure they're paid, whether it's you owe your team, if you're employed, or your boss, something like you owe your work, whether even you're offering a service. Let's say you have a small business, you're offering services to customers, you owe them, timely delivery. Like, we all owe each other something. So I actually agree with your pushback, which is that doesn't mean like I can do whatever I want with my time, and mtu asiniulize swali yoyote.
Exactly.
Mtu anaweza kukuuliza swali, because at the end of the day, it's like, we do owe each other something. We are responsible to each other, because our lives are so interdependent. If the bus driver says, hey, maybe I'm trusting you so much, and I'm here waiting for the bus at the bus station.
How am I gonna get here on time?
But I also think it sounds like you're also saying, but that doesn't mean that I'm just at the mercy of whatever. Like, I can't be a whole human being by myself. Like, I'm just
exactly.
I love that perspective.
Exactly. And that's why I don't mind going to my calendar and saying, all right, I'm gonna meet this friend from this time to this time, have lunch at this time, and then meet the other person at this other time. I don't mind being able to have a view of how my day is gonna look like. I don't really mind that, because I'm choosing. Sometimes today I had a view of how my morning up until when I met you was gonna look like, and then we'll figure out how the day goes by after that.
No, I love that. And then I'm wondering, so I don't think that's our reality, and especially for a lot of people. I think some people have that freedom in their lives because maybe they have the resources, whether it's wealth or whatever, because I think it's very closely tied to financial freedom.
Very much so.
Very much so. And that's why everyone is trying to be financially free, so that they can be time free and all of that stuff. This is just a question. Like, I don't know if there's a right answer or a wrong answer, but like, our ancestors, they seemed to have that mentality of time is abundant. Like, we're not running out of time. Obviously, here in the US and here in New York, I feel like there's always this sense of urgency in the air that we're running out of time. It's in everything, from a professional setting, even a personal setting. It just feels like time is running out. And for me, I felt like that sometimes that comes with an anxiety that I can't explain. Like, I can't explain why I'm feeling like like a clock is ticking, literally. But I feel like our ancestors, and again, probably I'm looking at it from a very summarized view, but they still had that sense of like, there's abundance of time. Why do you think those two are different?
I think it's a lifestyle. Back then, they just had less, quote unquote, fewer things to be accomplished. But in today's world, because of there's so much information, you certainly have this urgency and feeling of, well, I've got to have the best interior designed home. I've got to be out on brunch every Sunday.
Right.
I've got to go to the beach every weekend. Because there's so many things to be done, we are feeling pressured to want to do as many things as there is. But is it necessary? At work, it's all about how much can you get done? How much can you get done? How productive can you be? How many things can you do?
There's a bonus if you go above and beyond.
There's a bonus if you go above and beyond. Yeah. Then you feel the urgency of like, how can I get the most done in these 2 hours or 3 hours I have? I think it was about the lifestyle and what people's expectations of their lifestyle. So back then it was like a lifestyle of, you know, making sure that the society moves and the basic needs are met. But in today, it's also a society of how can we maximize our leisure time. Maximizing everything as opposed to just accepting good enough. Even when it comes to the question of financial freedom. When we're asking ourselves, what does financial freedom mean? And a lot of people might say, all right, I want to make $1 million because it's a good round number. But is that truly what financial freedom means to you? Because financial freedom is going to be different from person to person. It depends on what things you want to accomplish in your life and how you want to lead your life. So for some people, financial freedom will mean a smaller amount of money. And some others, financial freedom will mean 10 billion because they want to be flying in private jets every weekend. Right. So financial freedom will mean different things to different people. So I think it's all about like the lifestyle we choose. But the corporate lifestyle has been defined as capitalistic, as you have to accomplish as many things as possible. And that's why we feel that urgency at work. We feel that urgency because it's like, how can I demonstrate that I'm the most productive worker? No, I love, girl, again, gems on gems on gems. I love what she said. And just to pull on a thread that you've started sewing a bit. Damn, I'm sewing too many
like, I think that is very heavily informed by the political and economic system we live in today, which, as you started implying, we live in a capitalist world. And one of the features of capitalism is constant expansion. Like, we have to do more, bigger, better all the time, more. Like, capitalism is not satisfied that it's just we've reached. There's no reaching in capitalism. There's always a higher self. That's why they say capitalism is very innovative. But I think what that means in that context is that even when we achieve like technology, we're like, no. Now we go to the moon. Now we are in the galaxy. Now there's always the next step. Like you'll never feel like it's enough because there's always more. And I think that's heavily, infiltrated our culture today, where it's like constant consumerism. There's always more to buy, always more to do. And it comes with even a choice paralysis sometimes.
Yes, choice paralysis.
Because now, I visited Cuba, which is not a capitalist country. And I remember I went to the grocery store and they had maybe 2 brands of rice or something, or like 2 brands of soup, or whatever the case was. And then I was like, wow, this is so different than what I've seen in American grocery stores. When I go to an American grocery store, there's a million brands of the same item. Like, even if it's the same brand, like Oreos, Now there's Oreos, which is sijui, there's the thin ones, there's the thick ones,
there's the double cream
double cream one.
I don't know.
There's the mint chocolate one, whatever.
Different flavors.
Different flavors. It's almost like sometimes I go to an aisle and I'm like, I don't know
what to get.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
And it's always like, oh, now you're satisfied that you've bought stocks. People have bought Bitcoin.
NFTs. Now it's have you invested in AI?
Bye. Hello. Come on. Do you have a high yield savings account? Do you have this? There's always more. And I'm not saying it's bad to aspire to more.
Yeah, it's not.
But it's definitely paralyzing, especially when achieving that more is tied to how much labor you can put out. So it's like, if I want that lifestyle, I need to get 2 other side hustle. If you don't have a side hustle at this time, by the way, what are you even doing?
What are you even doing?
Like, you need a side hustle. You need passive income. You need oh my god, I'm even getting a headache just talking about
thinking about it.
It's very paralyzing. But I think you put it so well, because I think in our ancestors' time, it was just, certainly they weren't achieving much, but like the expectations of the time, it was a much more simple life. Like, what do we need? Food, shelter, clothing.
Yeah.
We've tilled the land, we've harvested, now we have food.
Yeah.
We have shelter. It's just a simpler life. Today, that doesn't fly.
Yeah, it's like after we've eaten, then we have our celebrations, we have dances, they come and dance, they come and enjoy life, you know. There's pros and cons of the ancestral world, and there's pros and cons for today. But one of the cons for today is your mental health. When you have to feel the anxiety of you need to accomplish a gazillion things.
Yeah. I actually think it's not necessarily natural, the amount of consumerism we have in today's world. Are you on TikTok?
I use it like Google these days.
Same.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I want to go get a review of a product.
I know, best restaurants in Nairobi.
TikTok.
Easy, honestly. Yeah. But the reason I'm asking that is like, these days I get so overwhelmed with TikTok because it's like, oh my god, new viral product to clear acne. This new, leave that one alone. That one is so last month. New viral product to like, I'm even like, guys, it's just so much.
There's just so much consumerism. Well, at least in America is a highly consumer driven country.
Culture,
and the reason why it accomplishes so much is because you're giving people the illusion that they have so many choices. They have so many choices of things they can do. They can make their life more efficient by doing this, by doing that. I try to remind myself of things, like even when it comes to like the consumerism today, I put things in my cart. It actually has a marginal enhancement in my life. If it truly does.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, then it's fine. I don't need an automated toaster. Yeah. Because honestly, I can just press down. Press the button.
Yeah.
So the bread goes down. I don't need a toaster where I place the bread on top and then it automatically just goes down by itself.
Yeah.
There's a limit I give myself to how much efficiency I want in my life.
So, as we close, what would you say to yourself in college who was very like, you know, probably just trying to succeed, probably with like the remnants of the mentality from high school and the Kenyan education system? Because there's somebody out there who is that, you know, always anxious, like, I have to achieve all these different things. And I know we're here sitting and saying, like, you know, define for yourself, you have to own your own time, blah, blah, blah. It's really not easy.
It doesn't work for everyone.
It doesn't work for everyone. It's not easy when you're looking around, and also when you're constantly being bombarded by all these different things, whether it's from your personal life or on social media. 5 ways to be a millionaire by 30. That really puts pressure on the mind.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, damn, I need...
The headlines.
Like,
subconscious.
It starts creeping up.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that, Lyncy, about like just chilling or whatever you want to say? What would you say to that girl?
Lyncy, I want to be realistic with you because I understand Lyncy from first year to third year. I understand you completely because you had nothing. Your resume had nothing. You wanted to make sure that you wanted to get a job.
Yeah.
And I think you did the right thing at that time.
Yeah.
Because you needed a time when you were grinding. You needed to set yourself up. You needed to, take the stairs.
Yeah.
And you needed to attend all those information sessions you were attending so that you can learn about what is out there. Because if you hadn't and you were sleeping, if the opportunity came, you wouldn't have been prepared for it, which means your opportunity would have gone. For me to have taken advantage of that opportunity at the time and gotten that internship, I needed to have been prepared for the interviews when they came. And to prepare for the interviews, I needed to attend all those information sessions I attended. Maybe did I need to attend every single one? Probably not. But at the same time, was it helpful that I attended all of them? Some of them were just honestly not so great.
Yeah.
But did I need to attend quite a number of them to learn all the skill sets that I learned? Yes, I did. Because if I hadn't, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I needed to do those things to know what I didn't know. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to. I was doing it because I needed to make sure I have something on my resume to prepare. So I think you did the right thing. And if you had to do it again, Lyncy, I would still do my first 3 years the way I did them. Maybe what I would encourage you to do is, like, on some weekends, I think maybe you could have traveled, you could have done spring break in Mexico.
Yeah.
That is what you could have done, spring break in Mexico.
Yeah.
You could have traveled a bit more as a student, and you shouldn't have felt financially scared to travel during those first 3 years in college. That's the only thing I would tell you to do differently. But I think she did what she needed to do during those first 3 years. So
real.
there is no regret
Yeah.
about how much I grinded, how much I worked.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be here today and even have the luxury to say I want to be able to have control over my own time if I hadn't done all those things and made sure that I was prepared for the opportunities that came to me.
Yeah, I love that, because again, I think just bringing us back to reality, we're not saying you should live your life like, hey, please, me, I'm not conforming, like, me, to say this way, I'm just gonna do my own thing. Unfortunately, we live in a society. We are affected by the rules of that society in one way or another. And so, as you said, and even our ancestors, actually, to be fair, believe there's a time to sow and a time to reap.
Oh, they do. And
so
the Bible says it too.
Right. And they sowed, like, when it was like planting time, they were out in the field, they were planting. When it was trading, they were out there. When it was weaving time, whatever the activity was, fishing time, because my ancestors were personally like fishermen. When it was fishing time, they were out in the water fishing. So yeah, there's that part of like working hard, but I think it's also just a reminder to like not be consumed. The entire span of your life is just that grind and that constant seeking for more that will never be achieved, because even when you get there, there's always more. So it's like, as you said, grind when you need to, and then see it now you chill, but like you can allow yourself some breaks, some breathing room, and some space after that. I really like that. And to close, I think that coming from both of us, that is also a very privileged perspective, obviously, because there are a lot of people in the world who grind from dusk to dawn. No, from dawn to dusk. Maybe both.
Yeah,
and
actually,
it doesn't pay off necessarily. So this is also very, very privileged, and hard work pays only happens for not everyone, to be fair, because we live in an unequal society. We live in a society that has so much unfairness and injustice. So this is also definitely not taking into account every single situation. But when you have the access and the opportunity to grind and it turns into something, then you should take full advantage of it.
Exactly. When you have the opportunity to grind and it's turning into something, take advantage.
Exactly. That's it, guys. That's Lyncy here. Thank you so much, Lyncy, for coming. This has been such a mind-expanding conversation for me personally. I've really enjoyed, talking to you about this perspective. I've loved your answers. I've loved getting to know how you think about this. And thank you, friends, for listening. Thank you for watching. However you're consuming this media, thank you so much. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and most importantly, share your feedback with me. Comment or send me a DM, as some of you do, to be fair. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye. Please write a comment about how you define time or
Exactly.
freedom.
We want to see like what's your point of view on the topic.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Ciao,
Bye.
ciao.